Hello, and welcome to Innovation Delivered. We are very excited to host this session and panel for you, all about the return advantage, turning friction into loyalty. So let's get right into it. First, I will be your host for the day. My name is Gabrielle Pritchard, and I am a product marketing manager at Octane, a little bit more specifically ShipStation, which is a company part of Octane. And so today we are going to have two amazing hosts who are going to help you tackle returns, really turn them into an advantage for your business, especially heading into this busy holiday season and beyond. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, yeah. I see my name up there first. I'll introduce myself. I'm Jamie Tharp. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. I am a director within the Digital Access Program at UPS, and my team in particular manages the partnership between UPS and Octane.
Wonderful. Welcome, Jamie. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And I'm Aurelian Leftic. I'm a Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships here at WooCommerce. And WooCommerce, for those that aren't familiar with it, is an e-commerce platform used by over 1 million merchants worldwide. And we help them create their online store and scale it as they grow.
We love to hear that. Thank you so much, Aurelian, for being here with us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Always. So let's kick things off, right? Returns, not the most fun thing to talk about, but we're going to change that today with some really great tips on how to really tackle returns and some great statistics to really get you excited to be able to make this a part of your e-commerce strategy as you move into the holidays and into the new year. So we'll get this started and kicked off with our first question. So Jamie, Aurelian, how can brands transform the returns process from a pain point into a loyalty building opportunity?
Yeah, Aurelian, I'll just give a pass at my high level thoughts on what I think matters to customers. I would love to hear the merchant perspective on this as well, but I think from a customer's perspective, convenience and choice are two really big components of what end customers are looking for. And that's actually something, Gabby, I'll probably mention the ShipStation Breaking Benchmarks report quite a bit, but that was one of the points that you focused on. But the stat that you'd actually shared was that 69% of consumers had stated that they would switch brands if another retailer offered more convenient returns. And that was actually a 25% increase from 2024 into 2025. So I think convenience and choice are becoming increasingly imperative for consumers.
Yeah, I have to say I am part of that statistic. And so I completely and wholeheartedly agree. Even if it's something that a brand, it may not be that they want to be forthcoming with returns, but having some sort of policy, I always think is a big step in the right direction. Aurelian, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. We all I'll say any merchant, when they're launching their store, one of the things that they do and should have on their checklist is publishing somewhere their return policy, whatever that is. And one of the great things about an e-commerce website is that you can edit that return policy at any point. And that means that you can start with something that you're going to be comfortable with as a merchant, because as a merchant, you also need to be comfortable with what you're offering. Your customers' preferences and the shopper's experience preferences are important, but you need to actually be able to implement that. So you need to be comfortable with it. And if you're just starting, taking small steps is also one approach. Or you can take a bit more, thought and think it through what would make sense for you and be a bit more bolder and put something that you're more confident with, even at an early step and at an early stage. And I would suggest that most merchants do that, to take a time to look at those, what are the options, and pick one and go for it and implement it. And the other thing in terms of being able to transform that return process, you look at what the solutions that were available 5 years ago and what was needed and the expectations of shoppers 5 years ago are very different than what it is today. When online shopping was kind of more starting and before COVID, because I think over COVID, most kind of shoppers got comfortable buying online. But prior to that, merchants, we had to still win people to come online and buy online. And having a very generous return policy was essential to win that trust. And I'm not saying that's not the case still today, but we are seeing a bit of a change. Even the Amazons of this world are changing a bit their return policies to be a bit less generous. And so that's one thing. So the expectations are shifting from the shoppers set by some of these market leaders. And then the other side of things is technology has also evolved over the last 5 years, because managing returns is complex for merchants. There's a lot involved with it. And there are now much better solutions for it. And those solutions that are being offered are not just in helping you manage the return in terms of the process of it, but also how to win back customers, how to save that sale, how to more turn that as an opportunity for you to gain the trust from from the shopper, deliver a better experience, and yet not come out of it as a net loss for you.
No, I think you're spot on with that, especially as we have more companies who are offering this. You have to stay competitive in the space. And more people are also looking for more convenient ways to do returns, whether that's doing it online or scanning a QR code and making that very simple. But one thing I really like that you touched on here at the end, and of course the whole thing, was talking about not making things a net loss. So how can you turn this around to be a positive experience? And so when we look at the different ways that people can do returns, what are some ideas that people or companies can turn this into a revenue driver versus saying, hey, someone created a return, I gave them their money back, they sent the product back, and now they're off in the wind. How can I re-engage them, or how can I even almost intercept that return to create a better experience?
Yeah, so I live in Washington State, and I'm a big hiker / backpacker. So I'll use a favorite brand of mine as an example of turning returns into an actual draw, into an offering as part of their brand. So REI, great example. Great brand, essential for any backpackers, hikers, outdoorsy types. They actually resell their gently used or returned gear under the banner resupply, which is super cool. And they've actually created some exclusivity around it, where it's the resupply is only available to REI co-op members, which is very cool, because it's then it's then feeding their loyalty program and their kind of the exclusive nature of what you get if you are an REI co-op member. And it's something that actually draws me to REI, because outdoor gear is expensive, and I know that. And it's really nice to know that there is going to be a re-commerce solution around gear that's gently used or simply returned. And that doesn't bother me at all. I'm happy to acquire that at a discount. And then it allows REI to monetize that part of their commerce lifecycle, which I think is super smart.
Yeah, I am a great proponent of their garage sales.
Yep.
And I wholeheartedly agree. And also, as a consumer, if I'm returning something, it's almost saying, hey, I can come back and maybe I'll also be able to reuse something. Kind of that reduce reuse of, I'm buying something that new, but it could still be used for someone else, even though it's gently used. So really kind of playing into their value propositions. I think that's really great.
Yeah.
That's a really amazing example.
And I think as consumers and brands become more environmentally conscious and more conscious about reducing waste, knowing that returns are put to a positive reuse purpose is something that becomes really appealing to a lot of consumers as well.
Exactly.
And it's also like a great way of also messaging what's the consequences of a return.
Yeah.
I think people are really becoming more aware of returns or often means landfills, or, that it's a bit of a hidden secret that's been more and more exposed, is that a lot of returns just finish in the landfills, and it's wasteful, and it's also costly to the market. So this is costly to the merchant, wasteful for the environment. And by having these kind of programs where like what REI is doing, is kind of a quite clever way of also highlighting that as what is the consequence of doing that return, and making shoppers more aware of how they're shopping and how they're consuming. And I think that's also something that we're seeing now in the last like 2 years, a bit of a wave of people trying to drive awareness from merchant side of what is the consequence of returns, because it is a costly source it's costly on merchants, and all that cost will come down to the shoppers eventually. So
yeah, I love that notion of creating awareness, Aurelian, that exposing that back to the consumer creates awareness of the cycle that's created that we can turn into something positive.
Yeah. No, I think that's all amazing. Just a wonderful example all around. And another thing that I want to touch on, Aurelian, you'd also said this a little bit earlier, when you're creating returns, that opportunity can also change to an upsell opportunity. And so I know at ShipStation, a big proponent when we think about returns is it's not just, oh, you want to give this back, maybe you tell us why and ship it back to us and we'll refund you. But is there a way to say, oh, well, actually, do you want this better? Maybe you want a different size, maybe you want a different color, a different style. And also while you're at it, these are great options that we want to rectify this. Would you like to buy something else? Can we turn this into an upsell opportunity? What are your thoughts on businesses taking advantage and kind of surfacing that a little bit more proactively than trying to be reactive and regain that customer after they've already done that return?
Clearly, the low-hanging fruit in here is, and we've probably all experienced this so far. If you're doing a return with a larger retailer, they've already put these kind of solutions in place. And the good news is that these solutions are now democratized and available to merchants of any size. They'll create, essentially, as a merchant, you can have a return portal where your shoppers can go in and decide to put a return, to initiate a return, and kind of survey or ask questions, and even in a kind of a survey format, like where people click radio buttons and say, is this the wrong size? Was it the wrong color? Or was it damaged? And collecting that information right away, instantly, you can then address the issue. If it's the wrong size, do you want us to ship a different size for you? So it's not necessarily a return, but more of an exchange. And already, if you're able to, it's still costly, but it still means that you save the sale by doing exchange. Same if it's color, same if it's damage, and also you're then delivering a better experience to the shopper, because he feels he's getting service. And this is something that you can do in a very automated way by these solutions. So that's one way of approaching it.
Great. Jamie, did you have anything to add to that?
I guess I'll yes and Aurelian and say I love the notion that returns can be looking at your returns data historically, by category, by seasonal peaks. Obviously, we're coming up on a big seasonal peak in the holiday season coming up in Q4. But not only that, but taking returns as an opportunity to collect why feedback from your customers and to hear the voice of your customers. Some of my favorite brands do that. When I'm returning something, they ask me, why am I returning this? Is it too small? Is it too large? They can even start to figure out if certain products tend to run large, and that maybe when they, when I'm buying a shirt, I might, there's a practice called bracketing, is when you buy multiple sizes of the same thing because you want to make sure that you have something you can actually wear by a certain time. It could be a great opportunity to collect data on, say, a specific shirt or a specific style of pants, to know that, hey, 60% of the returns were because this ran small. So maybe that's an opportunity for that retailer to include in their buying description to say, hey, we recommend, if you're on the fence on size, that you size up. The item tends to run small. Or even exposing data like 60% of customers say this runs small. And that could then in turn reduce your returns by giving useful information up front about how to shop.
Yeah, I totally agree. Guilty. Bracketing.
Same.
Name. I'm so sorry. to any business that works with me. So that makes a lot of sense. I really like your take on talking about data. Data driven is a big buzzword. I use it too much. But really being data driven and not just saying, oh, we're getting a lot of returns. Like, should we keep doing returns? But why are we getting returns? Is there an issue with the quality? Is something being returned a ton? Like, is it just not being marketed properly? Or are we not setting those proper expectations? I think is a big thing. And then inserting, hey, okay, great. We need you to size up if you're thinking about this, but also as someone is returning something, noticing from the data, usually people return this because it's a bad size. So let's offer them an exchange solution so that they can actually get what they want. And this is also leading into another question I have, offering different types of incentives in order to do those returns or exchanges. And Aurelian, you're talking a lot about different types of technology and how we can automate things, which is a big pain point, especially for smaller businesses that are getting ready. It's just one of a million things that you have to think about, right? But if you can automate those things to say, oh, if you do a return or you want to exchange, you can do it for store credit. Or, hey, if you do an exchange, maybe I'll give you $10 of store credit, also bumping up that loyalty if let me try to get a repeat customer with something that's a lower lift on my end. Any thoughts on those types of strategies for diversifying what an actual incentive is for returning or exchanging?
Yeah, I think that's one of the beauties of these kind of shipping return solutions that exist out there, is that they are also bringing in some of these strategies, the awareness for those strategies to the merchants. And we often by default think a return should just be for free and it's just credit back to the credit card that it was used. And there is a lot more creativity that exists out there, from leveraging credits to also having policies where it is not necessarily free. There might be a restocking fee, and there might be, or maybe it's only based on credit. And so, as a merchant, you're empowered to make the choices that make sense for your business. And I think that's important. You do want to have a really clear return policy so that, the shopper can be confident and also aware of what is happening. You might find one that's more favorable, but one that's too favorable could be very costly and also abused. So you need to calibrate based on who you're serving and what geography, and you may want to adjust by geography. What is the best return policy that you can put in? And you will see some really different creative ways. And you have alluded to some of them. It can be, a return on giving store credit, incentivizing, saying, hey, if you want a return, you'll get X. If you want to do a store credit, you'll get Y, and there's an incentive therefore to get a store credit back. So there's different things like that that are simple, but may say hard to implement. Yet these new return solutions make it easy to implement, because you're really just setting up and configuring it to be that way.
Yeah, that's great. I really like that. Jamie?
Well, I was just going to add, coming back to something Aurelian said earlier when he mentioned awareness for consumers about the actual costs and physical goods that are having to go back to an original store or original point of origin. I think it's important to be aware of what some of the real costs are. So, for example, from a carrier perspective, the reason that most returns are not something that you have picked up from your house, rather you take it to a drop-off point, because for a company to physically move those packages back from the consumer back to the merchant where they started, they don't go individually, they get grouped together. And they get grouped together for cost reasons. And that's why we have things like drop-off points. So as a consumer, when I'm shopping, coming back to convenience, I'm already thinking, what's the likelihood that this isn't going to work out? Or if I'm ordering two, I already know I'm going to be taking one back. So how difficult is it going to be for me to take it back? And what are the drop-off situations going to look like? And the reason for those drop-off situations, as we know from a carrier and merchant perspective, there's cost in taking that return journey. So how can you work with a partner that gives you, a carrier partner that gives you options like the UPS store that's in just about everybody's neighborhood, and almost everyone has one close. That's a convenient way that we can reduce costs for both the carriers and for the merchants by putting everything in one truckload going back to the origin. So it's just important to think about how those costs actually play out in the decisions that we give consumers. And then when we think about how we reduce costs for consumers to be able to give somebody free returns, we can think about things like what criteria have to be met for us to be able to give you a free return. So it's going to need to be taken to one of these drop-off locations. But what the good news is we'll make those really convenient for you. Yeah. And you'll have multiple choices of drop-off locations.
Yeah. Did you have something to add on, Aurelian?
No, but on the theme of like maybe some of the innovation here, and I mean, and also like Jamie was referring to, like some of the cost structure that you're seeing with returns. There's also this other opportunity when you're starting to scratch a bit on, hey, now that the carriers are becoming much more sophisticated with solutions around returns where the cost is lower, and they're innovating a bit on also the network that they have for it. It can also open up for merchants new opportunities for them to actually build a whole business around that incorporates returns into the business model. So if you know that your products are always often being bought like 2 different sizes, or people need to try it, like I'm thinking of like glasses, you need to try them before you're gonna like on your face very often before having it. And I think some of the large retail, some of the glass retailers have done this already. So they've already innovated with this kind of model. It's kind of practical. Glasses are kind of small and compact, easy to ship, but they'll ship you like 5 different frames that you can try at home, knowing that you're going to return. That's part of the experience of buying these glasses online, is you're going to return them. So you can imagine that might apply also to your category or maybe your business model, where how could you take advantage of returns to maybe be innovative around that. So some of these cycles come, and these ideas of innovation come and get unblocked. And so I think it's like sometimes it might be something to just kind of maybe talk to your UPS rep or your carrier rep and saying, hey, what's going on with returns, and is it a way for you to take advantage of it? And that's really stretch things out a bit now.
No, that's really great. And kind of going between what you both said, Jamie, especially with the rise in the last few years with all the drop off and access points, getting QR codes. So it's been really interesting to see that kind of blow up and give more options. And again, maybe I'm really bad at e-commerce, but I'm definitely the person who I'm buying something for a trip, and I know that I'm probably going to buy a few things. I'm not going to do it, bracketing guilty. But also I'm looking at what is that policy, and can I drop it off on the way to the airport kind of deal? So how convenient is that for me? I'm trying not to give anyone any ideas. And then also, Aurelian, what you're talking about, this reminds me of a customer that I was speaking with, who they do golf balls, but they take in returns of used golf balls. So they actually take returns in to help fuel their business. And so they're a really cool use case, looking for different software solutions that can fit them, because it's not necessarily that someone has an order that they put in and then they want to return it. It's more proactive of like, I want to send this off to you because you repurpose that and sell to other people for your business. And so it's also fun to see how people make returns very powerful, so that it can power part of their business that may not have always been something super typical. And again, that consciousness also that comes into ecosystems and how can we reduce, reuse, recycle, like it all kind of comes together. So I love hearing about that, and also just hearing about how technology is keeping up. We had mentioned earlier in the panel, just talking about when should you be setting this stuff up and when you should be thinking about it. I think we can all agree that thinking about it early is very useful, but then using that data that you gain from how your sales are going to really change and adapt how it looks along with the availability of new technology is really, really powerful, and is something that every business should take into account as they grow and they expand and they scale their businesses. Wonderful. Well, I think, does anyone have any other closing remarks or any other things that they want to put out there?
I would say returns is one of those essential things that you need to do as an e-commerce merchant, it might not, it would be better if we lived in a world where there's no returns and we would just got the sale. We wouldn't have to worry about it, but it is part of the reality that we all live in. And merchants need to just have a clear return policy from day one that sets that expectation, and then can quickly evolve as they need to. And start, if you're doing it, you can look at those solutions out there that can help you evolve your return practices so that they can be better optimized. Because there's definitely, as we discussed, some really creative and efficient solutions out there.
Yeah. I think I would, coming back to the title of our session, which is turning friction into loyalty, I really think I would emphasize for merchants the opportunity to use returns as an opportunity to have a conversation with your merchants and to have a dialogue with them. And I think you can do that in a few different ways. You can do that through data historical data that you have that's telling you when your consumers tend to return, what products they tend to return the most. Are there some more than others? And then I really like the opportunity to use returns to collect data to let your customers speak back to you, and to use that as an opportunity for them to give you feedback. And then the last thing I'd add is I would encourage merchants to survey their customers and to open up a dialogue proactively about what they would like to see. Some of the answers might actually surprise them. Data is one thing, but getting the why behind the data directly from your customers can be really valuable. And it also builds loyalty, and that merchants can show their customers they're listening and that they're prepared to respond to the feedback that they receive.
Yeah, encouraging those reviews and that feedback, which is a whole other topic that we could just dive for days into. But thank you both so much. All of this was incredibly insightful, and I hope everyone else does. I do have one quick question before we head out of here. What is the last thing that you've returned?
I just returned some backpacking supplies. I just did a backpacking trip, and I returned some Nalgene bottles because I ended up buying a bottle with a filter built into the bottle.
Oh, that's good. Very handy.
I wish I had an answer. I've been traveling for the last little while, so I haven't been shopping much. So my shopping hasn't been, and my returns I haven't been very active in that front. But I would have to look at.
Holidays are coming. You'll have an opportunity.
Yes. Yeah. I won't say it because I actually do have some things to return, but. All right. So thank you guys so much. We super appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. And of course, everyone who watched this panel, we encourage you to check out our other sessions that we have going on. We do have a demo lounge where we talk more in depth about different features and how you can use them within ShipStation and with our partners. So feel free to go over to our demo lounge to check out all of those. We have about 13 different sessions that you can check out. And then also, if you want to get a free trial of ShipStation, you can, of course, follow the link to check out all of the cool features that we have offered. And then we also have our wonderful ShipStation API product, which you can also sign up for a free trial, especially if you have a lot of order sources and cool marketplaces that you need to integrate together. We, of course, have a solution for you as well. So Jamie, Aurelian, thank you guys again so much. We hope to hear from you guys soon, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.